Good morning. I've promised this year to learn Zulu fluently, and I'm on about 10 words so far, but give me some grace and I'll keep trying. Welcome to everybody, and thank you to Number43 for allowing us this opportunity. I'm very aware of the purpose of this agitation, discussion, and thinking about June the 16th this morning. At the moment, Tandy mentioned a group of our high school students have just landed at Sikupe. And one of the pilots, there are two pilots flying them, is one of our employees. And her name's Tinswalo Ngobo, and she's a Soweto girl. She was born in 1990, so she won't remember the 76 riots, but Tinswalo is proof of the hard work and effort that we've put into transformation in aviation in the last 20 years. Tinswalo got a sponsorship to become an airline pilot. She worked for South African Express as an airline pilot and for other top-notch blue-chip aviation companies in South Africa. She's too modest and humble. If she was here, I'd call her up on the stage, but she's a very humble person, and humility is probably the most important quality that pilots can have, or anybody can have. So she will be here later, and I'll introduce her. She's going to be embarrassed and tell me off afterwards, but when she comes, I'll introduce her, because she's proof that there is hope and that dreams come true. Distinguished guests, welcome. No disrespect. I think the young people here this morning are the most important of the guests here this morning. And I'm going to try and keep this presentation as light as possible. And when I finish my presentation, I want you youngsters, please listen to what I'm saying, and you're welcome to ask any questions. Okay, any questions when we've finished? A theme, one of the themes of the discussion I wanted to have this morning was about dreams. You can change the next slide. So, as I'm going to call Dr. Ngobo, Tandy Ngobo, Tandy, because she's my friend, and we've become close friends on the journey that we've gone through in the last 9 years. So I've been flying for 51 years. So I had my first flight as a 10-year-old child, which is 51 years ago. And when I say first flight, it was a proper training flight in a light aircraft with an instructor where I actually got to hold the controls. And I remember that moment today as though it was yesterday. It planted a seed inside of me, a passion and excitement that I'd never experienced before. And as I stand here and talk to you today, I still love to fly. This afternoon I'm going to fly, I call them my kids, the grade 8 high school kids from Fuze, which I'll talk about some more. I'm going to fly my kids back home this afternoon, and I'm going to enjoy that flight. I love going to work. Aviation is, it's not a job. Being a pilot specifically, it's a vocation, it's a passion. I love to get up in the morning and fly. I see wonderful things. I go on regular international trips, see the world, but most importantly, to me, and what's been most rewarding to me has been the interaction and the support and the help. I've had the opportunity, which is a privilege, to train young people and help with the upliftment skills that's transferred to young people. You can go. So I want to share a story with you this morning. The story is about Fuze, but it's much more than that. So Tandy and I, we met 9 years ago, and at the time we were both involved in transformation in the aviation sector, following different paths, but when we met, there was a clear connection between us. And when I talk about dreams, we both had dreams. We spoke about all sorts of things in aviation, and I think people would listen to us and think, oh, these guys are mad, this is never going to happen. We spoke about opening our own aviation academy to train pilots from disadvantaged backgrounds, to fund young people from disadvantaged backgrounds. We spoke about overcoming the biases towards aviation, cultural biases, sexist biases. At the time, 9 years ago, we had about 8% female pilots, commercial pilots flying in South Africa, 8% of the number of total pilots. Today, it's about 14%. So that still doesn't sound very much, does it? It should be 50%. But we're making progress in South Africa, not just Fuze, but the industry's making progress. And I'm happy to say that 14% puts South Africa third in the world for the greatest percentage of female commercial pilots. And that's something, huh? Sorry, But not just pilots. So Tandy and I, we spoke about training engineers, we spoke about training drone pilots, we spoke about opening, which was a unique, innovative discussion about opening educational facilities, lower education, higher education, which specialized in pilot training, of which there were none in South Africa at the time, certainly in basic education. We spoke about opening charter companies and airlines, and we spoke about air shows and airport management a lot. It was big dreams. And the story I'm going to share with you is about those dreams. And a lot of those dreams have become reality. As I stand here today, I'm going to share some of those, the outcome of those dreams with you. And to the young people, it's good to dream. It's good to dream. It's good to have dreams. It takes a lot of courage to take the first step to achieving your dreams. And it's hard work, blood, sweat, and tears to achieve your dreams. Blood, sweat, and tears and money as well. We can't get away from the money. But it's important to take that first step. And if I can inspire some young people here today, then I go home and sleep well at night. Okay, yeah, I think that previous image you saw me, can you go back to that previous image? Look, I added this in because it's light. But I don't know if you can see, this was taken near Madzini on the north coast of KZN. There's the coast and the ocean. So this is an upside down selfie. So I was flying the aircraft upside down and managed to take a selfie. It took me about 3 attempts. I didn't get it right first time. But I put this here this morning because this was, 6 months ago. I have fun flying. I have fun. Not just this kind of flying, this aerobatic doing loops and rolls, that's exciting, it's fun, but I enjoy the challenge of flying. Ordinarily, I fly in formal commercial operations. I'm also an examiner for the Civil Aviation Authority, so I test airline pilots, commercial pilots, instructors in all sorts of aircraft. I might fly 30 different aircraft in a year, from jets down to small training aircraft. Last week, unfortunately my parents were unwell in hospital. It was Friday morning last week. I had to rush down to Cape Town in the afternoon just to spend some time with my parents. So I was feeling a bit down, but I had a test that morning for an instructor in a 1948 J3 Cub. It's a 2-seater little tail dragger aircraft. 1948 this aircraft was built. And we flew together. There's a backstory to this. When he arrived, he's a middle-aged man. I said, "How are you?" He said, "I'm not too good this morning. My pet parrot died." I said, "Oh, okay. Yeah." So I said, "Ian, your parrot died?" He said, "Yes, I've had this parrot for 40 years. 40 years. I didn't know parrots live that long." You didn't expect to come here this morning and hear a talk about parrots. I'm sorry. I do have a point. So I was feeling a bit down. My parents are very unwell. And Ian was down. He'd had this parrot for 45 years. It was like part of his family. Anyway, we flew this 1947, this beautiful old vintage aircraft. We flew from a little airstrip, or a Howick. It's just a little grass strip in the middle of nowhere. And we flew around for an hour. I tested him. I flew. He flew. And we landed and we looked at each other. We said, no, I feel better now. It was like a tonic, you know. So I'm telling you this because I'm trying to share some of my passion for flying. Yeah? It's not easy to be passionate about every career choice there is out there. You know, no disrespect to other careers. You can be passionate about anything that you do, and you should try and be passionate about anything that you do. My base of operation is at King Shaka, and even though I'm a pilot, every morning I still have to go through security, show my pass. I wear it around my neck 24 hours almost. And in the morning when I go through security, I know all the security guards now, and of course I know my name. Hey John, how are you? And it just makes the day a bit lighter. But there's a cleaner who cleans the floor in the security area, and he is one of the happiest, most content people I've ever met. And I respect and admire people like that because he cleans the floor, but he's happy with what he's doing, and he makes the best of his day and does a good job. And so you can be passionate about anything, and it's good to realize that. Yeah, we can go to the next slide. So let me talk a little bit more about Fuze. Fuze. So Fuze, we have forged a unique space in the aviation sector. We have. Because what we're doing in the aviation sector in South Africa is not only innovative, but it's unique. There are many flight schools in South Africa. In actual fact, South Africa specializes in pilot training. We have a global reputation to produce excellent pilots, and we have done for decades. Something to be proud of. But there are lots of flying schools in South Africa. So Fuze is a flying school. We have an aviation training organization. Lots of abbreviations in flying. It's an ATO. Accredited with the Civil Aviation Authority, of course. But we've gone many steps further, and this is where you see that our dreams coming into reality. We opened a maintenance organization to maintain our own aircraft and to maintain other people's aircraft. Our training organization not only trains pilots, it trains aviation engineers and drone pilots. Okay, we're one of the few schools in the country that do all three. Besides that, we have ventured into airport management. Our main base is at Pietermaritzburg Airport, but we also have a base at Newcastle Airport and manage Newcastle Airport. And then something which has been really special, a wonderful experience, is the air shows that we organize. This isn't an advert for the air show. It's the only picture I had, actually, of something related to the air show. But you're welcome to go, of course. So on the 27th of June at Oroby Airport, we're hosting our third air show. These are the first black-managed air shows in South Africa. Yeah? Yeah. And the advantage or disadvantage I have, because I'm an old white man, is I hear both sides of every story, if you understand what I'm saying. And sometimes I hear some ugly stuff which doesn't sit well with me. So I listen in the industry and say, oh, these guys, Fuze, organizing an air show, do they know what they're doing? Last year, we received an award for our air show, the third best air show in South Africa. And there are many air shows. So that was our second attempt at an air show. And the people we have here, I'm going to pick on you, Safiso, I always do. Safiso, stand up, please. Come on, don't be shy. This is Safiso. Safiso, she is an aviation engineer. So she works in our engineering department. She's training young people. I'm going to show you some pictures of our cadets in a moment. But Safiso, she also organizes, we all organize the air show. It's a big team effort, but she's instrumental in organizing the air show. And these other old white men pilots and people who've been in the aviation industry for years, they say to me, geez, John, you know, she's good, eh? In fact, we think your air show is the best. So that's coming from people I've known for years, who maybe 10 years ago were saying something a bit different. So Fuze is breaking ground. What does that mean? That means that we're changing perceptions and we're showing that dreams can come true and anything is possible if you have the right people, the right expertise, but more important, the vision, the passion, and the willpower to make change. Okay, you see this aircraft here taking off at night. Anybody recognize the airport? No, I don't think so. It's a nice picture though, hey? Yeah? This is our flight simulator. This is our flight simulator at our Redlands office in Pietermaritzburg. That's a simulator, that's not an aircraft. Yeah. We have, the reason this picture is here, because I want to talk a little bit about the facility that we have, the resources that we have. This simulator here is used for training commercial pilots, pilots that want to do their night rating. When you sit and fly in it, you feel like you're in a real aircraft. I did a test last month on this simulator with 2 airline pilots, and I programmed hail. Like you can change the weather in the simulator. I programmed hail. So when it starts to hail, it makes a noise like on the windscreen, and you get splats on the windscreen. It's realistic. And it was raining, and there was lightning, and the hail. Now, these 2 pilots used to work in Afghanistan, and they regularly got shot at. So when I said to them, okay, what's happening? I think we're being shot at, they said. But it's so realistic. It's an amazing training tool. So our facility, our main academy for pilot training, drone training, where we train the engineers, is at Pietermaritzburg Airport, Orreby Airport. We have a large hangar there, a maintenance facility, and the training rooms for the engineers and the pilots are situated at Orreby. We've opened a satellite station, remember, all accredited with the Civil Aviation Authority, the ATO, the maintenance organization, and the satellite training academy at Newcastle Airport. Our head office is at Redlands Office Park in Pietermaritzburg, and that's where our high school is. We have an aviation high school, which I'm going to come back to because you're going to see I'm very excited about that. The first in South Africa. Okay. Oh, and yeah, before I go on, most importantly, I just wanted to talk about the staff. So going back to when Tandy and I met, we realized to pull off what we wanted to do, our plans, we needed to build a dream team of expertise, of people with experience in the industry, qualifications. So people the likes of Sifiso that you've met, I'm not going to ask everybody to stand up, but I forgot to mention the ladies first last time I got told off. So Sifiso I'm mentioning first. Actually, at Tumeleng, I never mentioned a Tumeleng, but Tumeleng is our administrator, and she's like a mother hen to the students. You know, these are young people, they need looking after, and she's that person. But she worked at South African Airways for many years. Zuko, our accountable manager at the training organization, also an engineer, aviation engineer, and with 27 years of experience at SA Technical. I'm going to talk about our head of training, the chief instructor of the engineers. You'll see him shortly on one of the slides. I'll talk about him then. Our chief flying instructor who teaches the youngsters to fly, he's an ex-Air Force major. He worked for the South African Police Force. He worked with me at the Red Cross Air Mercy Service for a few years, an old colleague of mine. Bags of experience, really, really experienced, but most importantly, he's passionate, Kevin, hey? He's really passionate about what he does, and the kids buy into that. Like me, you'll see the passion I have for aviation. So we have a really great team of experience. Now this is where it gets serious to the young people here. Whether you're an engineer or a pilot, even a drone pilot, aviation is a very technical career choice. We have struggled in South Africa with our math literacy in the past few decades, and it's affecting training programs like aviation and other technical postgraduate, undergraduate degree courses. If you want to get into aviation, you need to be scoring A's and B's in your math and math core rather than math lit. You need to be scoring A's and B's in your physical science. Your English needs to be good. And I'm telling you this now. I don't know how old you guys are. What grade are you in? 4. Okay. And you guys? Okay, so you're still young enough to, if your math isn't great and you're interested in becoming a pilot or an engineer, any engineer actually, you're still young enough to work on your math, physical science. But if you're interested in aviation, then you will need to score well. So we recognize that in the industry, there had been poor attention to selection and assessment processes. Organizations like TITA, which is the Transport CETA, and other sponsors from government were sponsoring programs but without proper selection, which is, the worst of it is when a youngster doesn't make the grade, doesn't pass the examinations, they become disillusioned. If they get washed off a course, it's not fair. That's the worst of it. It wastes resources and money and human resources as well if someone has to be washed off a training course. So, Tandy and I, we realized the importance of proper selection and assessment. So all of our students, whether they're at the high school or the academy, whatever they are studying, go through an assessment, a selection process first. We're looking for those A's and B's, and then a thorough assessment, psychometric testing, math literacy, English literacy. So, it's important. But whether you're interested in aviation, if you're interested in any technical career, then work on your math. I know you've heard this before, but yeah, it's important. Okay, next. All right, let me briefly now talk about the different training pathways, the different courses that we offer at Fuze. So, as I mentioned earlier, professional pilot training, all the way up to airline pilots, aircraft mechanic apprentices, drone pilots, and then the high school. Okay. So, we're not just training. The industry, the aviation industry is booming now, globally. There is a shortage of not just pilots, there's a shortage of engineers, especially technical people. Largely because of COVID. There's still a hangover from COVID. A lot of pilots and engineers retired. Training stopped for almost a year and a half. So there is a backlog from COVID. But before COVID, the global aviation industry was not training enough pilots to meet the global demand. And we're back there again. This isn't a blip because of COVID. It's a chronic long-term issue. Most of our commercial and most of our airline pilots that come from South Africa are working abroad. They're flying for Emirates and Cathay Pacific and prestigious airlines all around the world because they know how good they are at those airlines. What I'm saying to you, aviation is a good sector to get into. There are work opportunities. It's so demoralizing when I meet young people who say to me, I've got a degree in this or that, I can't find work, I've tried so hard, I've knocked on so many doors, I feel like giving up. In aviation, there is work. And we work on aiming towards 100% placement in the sector with our graduates. So briefly, the drone pilot training first. Drone pilot course is a short course. You get away with math, the C's for math, physical science with the drone training. The examinations are not quite as difficult and technical as the piloting and engineering. It's a 2-month course. There are nonetheless some tough exams. The hardest of the examinations is the radio, because drone pilots have to learn how to use radio. Part of the radio test is a practical test, which is something that I also do, where I am the air traffic controller, the candidate is a pilot, and we have an interaction. And the interaction is assessing their knowledge, but also their English literacy. English is the language of aviation, whether we like it or not, internationally. There has to be one language, because we fly from one country to another. It wouldn't be possible otherwise. So the English, spoken English, has to be good. To be honest, 90% of local people I meet, not just in South Africa, but in Southern Africa, their English is of a good enough quality to qualify as a pilot, to be honest. Okay, next slide, please. The aircraft apprenticeship. Here's Norman. Norman's not here today, he's working. Unlike the rest of us, having breakfast and on our, not a holiday, but we're enjoying being here in Swaziland. It's, and guest of Number 43, you've been very welcoming, and it's nice to be, I said earlier, to be in your house for a change, because you're so often with us in South Africa. So this is Norman. 43 Air School, which is nothing to do with Number 43, has been it's been the biggest air school, training school in South Africa for many years, and people say the most prestigious. Not for long. Watch Fuze. I'm serious, we're gonna run past them in the next 2 or 3 years. We're gonna take up that space. But nonetheless, 43, the most prestigious school, it's a big training school, it's located in Port Alfred. Norman was the head of engineering and the head of training. He's an engineer instructor as well as an engineer. He was head of training there for 8 years. Besides that, he's worked all over Southern Africa as an engineer. But he's like me. In many ways, our characters are much the same. We're both passionate about what we do. We're passionate about upskilling young people. He's a wonderful man. He's, you know, Tandy, I said to Tandy, we need this person, and we headhunted him, and it's paying off. So here he is with a group of these are our engineering students here, and that's our aircraft. So he's teaching them about aircraft engines here. We have 3 training aircraft, and they're South African aircraft, which we felt was important. It's a company called Sling that are manufacturing aircraft in Tedderfield, which is south of Johannesburg. Sling has been an enormous success. And has anybody heard of Sling here? Anybody? No? Another South African success story. Sling has a 2-year waiting list for their aircraft, and 60% of their aircraft are going to the States, Australia, overseas. Yeah. It's amazing. Sometimes when I read the newspapers, listen to the radio, I need to switch it off. You know, you don't hear about this stuff. You don't hear about the good stories, what's happening in our country. It's really. So we made a commitment to use Sling aircraft, and Norman, you can see here, is running these engineers through part of their training. So this is the current group of graduate students that we have. The engineering course it takes 36 months. They do 12 months of technical training examinations with Norman, and then they go on to an apprenticeship for 1.5 years. When they finish their apprenticeship, which is experience building, they fill in a logbook. They need at least 2,500 hours of on-the-job training. Then they do a trade test, then they qualify. So that's quite a process. And those engineers, again, if you're interested in engineering, math, physical science is important. I mentioned transformation. I mentioned that 9 years ago there were only 10% female pilots, black female pilots, or female pilots actually, in South Africa. Here's some more statistics. As I stand here today, there's only it's between 8 and 11% of black aviation engineers in the sector. Last year, we placed 63 engineers that we trained. We placed them in the sector. Safair, Link, That one program, that changed the percentages. One program. Fuze did that last year. So, and this is where our dreams start coming true. Didn't I say that at the start? We have dreams, our dreams are coming true. The pilots are high school youngsters. These are 3 youngsters from the high school. They will be here in about 30 minutes. You'll get to meet them. They're an amazing group of youngsters. So they're receiving training already in grade 8. Oh yeah, I'm hot up here, sorry. Because I'm more used to the colder climates. So they're already receiving training towards their private pilot license. I'll come back to them. But they're in the hangar getting some real-world experience in our hangar at Peter Maritzburg Airport. The commercial pilot license takes 2 years. It's intensive, it's hard, the examinations are difficult. The pass mark is 75%. 75%, yeah? It has to be. You're not going to jump in an aircraft with a pilot who's only got 30 or 40%, no? Thanks, Doc. So it has to be high. That's for the pilots. For the engineers, the drone pilots, 75%. I mean, what is that? Is that a B? That's a B? Yeah, A minus, B, yeah. And you need to aim for 100% to get 75%. That's the long and short of it. Long and short of it. So the exams are not easy. There's a 30% pass rate first time for these exams, just 30%. With good selection, I'll tell you a story. The first group of students that we took on board was sponsored by the Transport CETA. We did a proper selection and assessment with them. We had a 90% pass rate with the technical exams with that group. And it just showed how important that assessment and selection process was. These youngsters have been through the same process. These are grade A students. So the commercial pilot license takes 2 years. There are 8 written exams for the PPL license, the private pilot license. You do that first. Our high school graduates will do their private pilot license in grade 10. You can have a student pilot license at the age of 15. Did you know that? You can fly an aircraft solo on that student pilot license when you're 16. So I have known many, many students of mine who got their pilot license before they got their driver's license, who flew in an aircraft on their own maybe 2 or 3 years before they drove a car on their own. That's something, eh? Would you get in an aircraft with a 16-year-old flying? Oh, no, just I don't know. If I trained them, they'd be fine. Then they do the PPL first. Moving on to the commercial license, they need to do another 8 written examinations for the commercial pilot license. They need to do 200 total hours of flight time for the commercial pilot license. When I met Tandy 9 years ago, besides selection issues, there were placement issues on sponsored transformation programs in the aviation sector. Placement issues. South African Airways had a blue chip quality cadet program. They were actually sending their students to Australia for jet training, which was a tragedy because we should have been doing it here. And it was costing millions of rands to train these students. The last group of those South African Airways cadets weren't placed. I mean, we all know the issues that South African Airways, the challenges they've faced the last 10 years. Those students, they weren't placed. My co-pilot that I fly with regularly, Yusuf, he was one of those students. He said, no, we were just cut loose. I mean, you spend all of that money and you didn't have a proper placement strategy. And again, it's not fair. It's not fair to young people. So we're working hard on placement, and I'll come back to that later. Excuse me. One of those fathers that dances, does the digging a hole thing when I dance. It's embarrassing. So, the high school, yeah, this is something I'm really excited about because, as I said, there have been lots of aviation training organizations, schools in South Africa, never a high school. One of the first projects Tandy and I started working on was actually not basic education, but higher education, and that's still to come, to have a aviation undergraduate degree and or diploma which integrates the pilot training, gives credits for the civil aviation exams, and has other modules in management and human factors. So we can produce a pilot with a degree, a bachelor science degree. We're working on that. Watch the space. I told you we have dreams. There's more to come. But the other end of the spectrum was basic education. I think things are improving in the sense that many years ago, most people knew nothing about aviation. And it's still the case, especially we often interview prospective candidates from rural areas, and they really have no exposure whatsoever to aviation. Never been in an aircraft, never seen an aircraft, never touched an aircraft. Really no idea about flying. And what's worse is to them it seems something so unattainable, so remote, that they didn't even think it was an opportunity. But it is an opportunity. There are pathways to becoming pilots and engineers. There are cultural biases towards girls getting involved in more technical career choices, like piloting and engineering. So we're working hard on that. Now, I've got a new group of students here because what I'm going to say next, I'm sorry guys who've heard my presentations, you've heard all of this before about the men and the women and who are the better pilots. So let me ask, young lady here, you two, do you think men or women make better pilots? I didn't even see your lips move. I heard a woman from here. Men or women? Women, men, women, women. Okay, guys, what do you think? Men, women, men. Someone said men. Why men? Let me tell you something. So, as Tandy mentioned, I've got, 26,000 something landings in my logbook. And importantly, my takeoffs still equal my landings, which mean every flight was successful, touch wood. So my wife, I haven't spoken to my wife for 6 months. Yeah, I don't like to interrupt her. When I married her, I knew her name was Wright, but I didn't know her first name was Always. But shame, sorry. Women communicate more effectively than men, and in a modern airline cockpit, communication is possibly the most important of qualities. If you watch these air accident investigations, you'll see that they say, 90% of accidents are human error, and many of them are the result of poor communication, either inside the cockpit with traffic control, poor communication. In my experience, a female pilot communicates better under pressure than a man does. When a man's under pressure, he starts to lose a little bit of his ability to communicate because my wife and I have been married for 25 years, but we don't fight anymore. We have heated discussions, but we don't fight. But when we did, back in the day, I often walked away from a discussion with my wife thinking, I didn't say what I wanted to say. I don't know if you've ever experienced that as a man. Yeah? And you feel like she got one over you. You get that? You walk away thinking, oh, I should have said this, I should have said that, and women communicate better under pressure because a woman uses more of her brain than a man does when she communicates. Uses both sides of her hemispheres, whereas men tend to use just the left hemisphere, the speech areas. And I'm not being facetious here. This is science. Women see more shades of color than a man does. If you believe in evolution, it's an evolutionary thing apparently, but any which way, it's because if I go to the fridge and I'm looking for the mayonnaise, I can't find that mayonnaise. I'm looking, I call my wife, where's the mayonnaise? She's walks all the way from the bedroom, puts her hand in the fridge, pulls out the mayonnaise. I can't see the mayonnaise. Her eyesight is better than mine. You experience that as well, the men in the room, I'm sure. Look, okay, men and women have different qualities. It's important for the girls to understand that. A woman should not be competing with a man, not anywhere, not at school, not at home, not in the aviation sector. That's a self-fulfilling kind of philosophy in the sense that it makes you think that you're not as good as a man if you're trying to compete with a man, yeah? So don't think that way. Women make just as good pilots as men do. That's the way to think. And for the girls here, go and read some Simone de Beauvoir. She's a writer, talks about one of the first feminist writers, and she explains this all very nicely. But anyway, I'm transgressing away from the presentation. I think what got me onto talking about this was that besides getting past these biases, we saw the need 10 years ago, where the industry wasn't booming so much. We saw the need to train our pilots and our engineers and upskill them with skills that ordinary schools didn't upskill them with. Management skills, human factors. Already in the first term, the grade 8 students are receiving lessons on attitudes, receiving lessons on communication, on stress management. Remember, accidents, 90% of accidents are human error. So we're training hard in human factors at Fuze. It helps also, I have a double lesson every week with the high school kids, the grade 8 kids, and I focus on human factors training. And again, it's a privilege for me to be able to share some of the stuff I've just spoken about, communication, to share attitude, what attitudes are, professionalism, discipline at that early age. It's not just lip service in LO, because it's purposeful. And the aviation sector has invested not millions, billions of dollars in these kind of training courses to reduce aircraft accidents. It's very effective, it's very purposeful training. Okay, I think we can move on. These, my kids, I call them my kids, this is the grade 8 class, there's 10 of them. The first grade 8 aviation matric class ever, right there. Have any of you ever been on a school trip in an aeroplane? No? Me neither. But this was a trip. I flew them. We went on a school trip together last month, and it was just a wonderful experience. Okay. So the high school, yeah, it's an amazing thing. It really is. These are as 3 of the high school kids. They're learning not just about human factors, they're learning about aerodynamics, they're learning about engines and airframes, they're learning about weather, meteorology. They will sit their private pilot license exams in grade 10, and before they matriculate, they'll have a private pilot license. But besides that, if you go on to the next slide, I don't know if you can see this, but this is a summary of the grade 8 syllabus. You'll see here aerodynamics, technical aspects. Remember, this is mixed in with a normal matric syllabus. a strong STEM syllabus. STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. So they have aviation lessons every day mixed in with the matric syllabus. You'll see here communication skills, risk assessment, ethics in aviation, the history of aviation. The history of aviation, important to me because that helps develop knowledge of your career choice. It helps develop some passion towards what you're studying towards. You're not going to believe this, but my kids both went into law. My wife is a lawyer. Help! I will never afford to get divorced. I will never. Because if my wife doesn't take me to the cleaners, my kids will. My son will learn to fly. I offered to teach them to fly, but they both went into law. My daughter's an attorney at Wexmans. But I've always said to them, it's important to be passionate about what you do. And how do you become passionate about what you do? You learn about what you do. You watch the news when it relates to what you do. You go out of your way to learn about the company you work for, the industry you work in. Don't just go to work and sit there and to do what you have to do and go home. Because if you're passionate, it adds color to your life. And it just makes that journey more enjoyable. Like the guy that's sweeping the floor at King Shaka. He's passionate about his job. You can laugh about it, but he is. And his day is brighter for it. So, some really powerful modules in the aviation sector from grade 8. And yeah, there's the grade 10 module. Gets a little bit more technical with radio aids, instruments, a little bit more technical in grade 10. There's a nicer picture of Norman, our head of engineering, and Wandile. Wandile is one of the grade 8 students. Okay. All right. I'll keep an eye on the time. I've been accused of talking too much. When you start falling asleep, that's usually my cue to leave the stage. But just 2 or 3 slides reiterating what I said earlier. The aviation space is a good space to get into now. There's lots of opportunity. There's lots of work, not just in South Africa, but globally. If you get into the aviation space, you will travel. You will travel. Yeah, you can read this slide yourself. There's a shortage of drone pilots in South Africa and globally. The drone pilots, man, they're doing almost everything. I mean, you read about them, use the military drones in the wars, but they're doing so much more. Drones are being used for photography, surveying, in the mining industry, the medical industry, across the board, security. Okay. Here's an exciting project. So last week, which is part of our placement strategy, we did a presentation to the South African National Blood Service. And the presentation speaks to delivering blood to rural areas that are difficult to reach by road. So we are going to kickstart in KZN a service that flies blood to distribution centers in normal aircraft. And then from those distribution centers, it's flown by drones to clinics and medical facilities that might take 2 hours to drive to. So for example, from Ulundi, I think this slide is shifted, but from Ulundi, you can see there are 5, Ulundi Airport that is, there are 5 different clinics which are sort of 20 minutes to 30 minutes flight by drone, and the drone carries the blood or vaccines, even organs, carries the blood to those facilities in 20 or 30 minutes. The drive from Ulundi to Hlabisa is 2 hours. The drone will fly in 20, 25 minutes. We're going to kickstart this in KZN with the partnership with the South African National Blood Service. What's relevant here, and there are many other projects we're working on. We're working on projects to survey power lines with the local municipalities and Eskom with drones. What's important today is that our graduates will go and do that work. So we train you, then we place you. We are not going to be able to place all of our drone pilots with the projects that we're working on now. We're going to have to, if we can't train enough, we're going to have to outsource candidates to fill those places. There's too much work that we can't train enough drone pilots to fill those spaces. Engineering, also a global shortage, a critical shortage of engineers. These aviation engineers, pilots, all recognized by TITA as scarce skills. Europe forecasts a deficit of 4,000 technicians a year, just in Europe, 4,000 a year. Again, because of COVID, you've seen it takes 36 months to train an aviation engineer, and it's quite expensive. So there's no quick fix to this. But with the projects we're running, where we can place 60 odd engineers at one foul swoop, then you start making dents. Okay. Pilot shortage. I have never seen in the 35 years I've been flying in South Africa, I've never seen such a shortage of pilots here. The airlines are taking instructors with relatively low hours they never would have taken before. They've lowered their hourly rate on prospective candidates. And as a result, there's now a shortage of flight instructors in South Africa. We're struggling to find flying instructors ourselves to keep up with our requirements at Fuze. And because there's a shortage, the salaries have gone up considerably. Now, I get everybody excited here, but you know, these are based in the United States, which is a kind of benchmark. But you know, an experienced domestic captain in the United States earns about $226,000 a year. The blue chip airlines, which many of our South African pilots are flying for, an experienced captain earns $700,000 a year, which is R1 million a month. So the rewards are there. You know, my kids tell me how much lawyers earn, which is, you know, if you're working for a big practice, they're charging themselves out at, you know, $50,000 a day sometimes. But flying can be a very lucrative career. It can. And because of the international opportunities, if you get to work overseas and earn foreign currency, it, you know, really can be quite lucrative. Engineers, pilots alike. Okay. Just going back to the placement strategy. So, you see, many of our dreams have come true at Fuze. We're actually making things happen. Our next steps are to open a charter company and to fill in the gap in South Africa and Swaziland to fly from municipal airports, like from Newcastle to Sikupe, for example, or Newcastle to Ulundi. You know, you don't get scheduled flights. So we're going to start flying scheduled flights, Newcastle, Joburg, those kind of routes, Pietermaritzburg, Kokstad, or to reach municipal airports. We'll use our graduates, we'll absorb our pilot graduates into that program. We can move on. We'll absorb our graduate pilots as instructors. So the student becomes an instructor. When you finish your commercial pilot license, you have to do that first. You do another 20 hours of flight training, 2 more exams. It takes 3 to 4 months to become a flight instructor. So our graduates stay at Fuze and start teaching the students. I mentioned the outreach service earlier, or focusing on using drones for medical outreach. We are organizing our first outreach, medical outreach in Newcastle. When, Tandy? which date was it? In July. So in July, Fuze will be hosting its first medical outreach, where we're going to take clinicians from various backgrounds to Newcastle to help people in rural communities. And that's a project which is close to my heart, close to Tandy's heart. That will also absorb cadet pilots out of the academy. This, I put this slide here because there's many different types of work you can do as a pilot. Most people just think about airline pilots. You could, like me, work in rescue, medical outreach. I fly on the flying doctor service in KZN. Most people don't even know there's a flying doctor. Did you know there's a flying doctor service in KZN? We fly almost every day to rural airports and take doctors, nurses, psychiatrists, midwives who fly with us, get off the aircraft, go to rural hospitals, clinics, help people, support the rural hospitals. That happens in KZN every day. Again, another an amazing South African story that people don't know about. But you can join the airline, of course. You've seen how much airline pilots earn. You can fly corporate companies like Anglo-American, where they have some fantastic aircraft, and you fly lots of international flights, become a flying instructor. There's lots of different opportunities. Something else that I do, I deliver aircraft. So I fly aircraft. Last month I picked up an aircraft in the United States and flew it all the way back to OR Tambo. A small aircraft. Takes about 8 days. Stopped in 14 different countries, had 14 different local meals, met lots of interesting people, saw lots of interesting weather. This picture on the right, this is the route on one of these flights. This was from South Africa. So you literally travel 3/4 of the way around the world. See all sorts of things. I've flown over the pyramids, Niagara Falls, over the Amazon, the Congo, the Sahara Desert, the whole of the Nile, over Paris, London. It's amazing. Sometimes it still takes my breath away. Last year I was flying, it was a beautiful day in Europe, and I was coming from Serbia and heading towards the UK, and I got on the corner of the Adriatic. I could see the whole of Italy, I could see Venice, and in the distance I could see Mont Blanc in France. And it took my breath away, it did. I pinched myself. I just sat there and thought, wow, it's special. I took this picture last year. That picture is the Greenland ice cap. That's in Greenland. The runway that I land in is at the end of this fjord. So you fly down the fjord and land on this icy runway. It's something else. These are the things that you can see. Okay. Yeah. You'll notice that this was it was October, and the sun never comes up. There's about 4 hours of sunlight in Greenland in the winter. So the whole day is dusk like this. The sun never comes above the horizon. Okay, you can move on. Placement, I think we can move on. I think I've spoken enough about this. And this. Yeah, the next one. So just to finish off on the placement aspect, we're developing partnerships with people like the South African National Blood Service, with the Air Force, with a number of airlines, ESCOM, to place drone pilots, engineers. That group of engineers last year, they went to all of the big airlines, Safair, Airlink, and a lot of smaller maintenance facilities around the country. So we're aiming for 100% placement. Okay, next. Okay. Just to finish off, and we'll take questions in a moment. So there's lots of quotes about dreams. I mean, I just Googled dream quotes. You can do the same, and this was just one that stuck out to me. So your dreams can come true. It's good to dream. it's good to feel passionate about something. There are obstacles. It's not easy. The first step is the hardest step. That first step is the hardest. And then don't think it's going to be easy. Just study hard, work hard, knock on doors, ask for money, whatever it takes. But it's important that you think that way. And if aviation is something that you're interested in, or if you, and there's, I don't know how many young people we have here, but if you have friends who are interested, you can find us. Like, you look on our website, or find other people locally that might help you. But reach out. You can do it. Even if you're a young lady and people are saying to you, no, you can't be a pilot. You can be a pilot. You can. So I just want to finish on that note that dreams can come true. Tandy and I, our dreams came true, and we've still got lots to do. We're both in our, well, I'm not going to say how old Tandy is. I'm 61. I think you're about 50 now, Tandy. But you look at me and think, oh, look at that old man up there. But I'm still dreaming. I'm still enjoying my work. I've got lots to do. Retire? No. So, yeah, dreams can come true. Okay, well, thank you very much. Thanks for allowing me to talk. I hope I didn't talk too much, Angel. Okay, thank you.